What's up guys, Phoenix here. This video is going to be another DN ranked match, and this time I'm going to be playing with the Super Quantum deck against Kozmo. Now, this match is going to be the first one of the ones that I have to speed up to double speed, because in real time the match took about 30 minutes. Mainly because of, one, my plays were kind of complex and I had to think a bit about them. My opponent was playing Kozmo, so he kind of had to think some things out as well, but then I'm also messaging a friend in between moves and stuff, and that kind of added to the clock as well, all things considered. But as you can see in the chat, he is a fan of the channel, and I did not tell him I was recording until the very end, because I did not want it to affect his play in any way, negatively or otherwise. I wanted him to just play as if he was playing a regular game. But anyway, activates Kozmo Town, first card, as he won RPS and chose to go first, and then reveals Sword Trooper and Farm Girl to shuffle back, draws 2, sets 2, and then E-Tellies for Tin Can in the end phase to play around Valor, and pays 500, revealing Dark Eclipser, Forerunner, and Dark Destroyer. And as you can see, I'm talking to my friend in chat, and that'll be popping up very periodically throughout this video. That's another reason why I wanted to stay away from live commentary with these, because I do talk to a lot of people during games. But anyway, I set the parameters for Eclipser to be 1-2 and Runner to be 3-4, meaning 5-6 would be Dark Destroyer, and I ended up rolling a 2, so he gets the Eclipser and he has to summon it right away because he would lose his Tin Can to E-Telly otherwise. Now, my hand is really good. My hand is Brilliant Fusion and like all of the combo cards. Basically, no matter what he would have hit off the fairy, had the fairy gone through, like I would have been able to have at least made each of the 3 Xyzs, and then possibly made Magnus depending on what green would have drawn going to Grave, stuff like that, all these other varying factors. But unfortunately, he has MST for the Brilliant Fusion, and then when I summon the fairy, he has Solemn Strike for that. And so I set my strike and my warning, and I'm like, damn, that would have been an extremely strong hand for me to have gone first with, regardless, because of, blue layer plus being backed up by strike and warning would have been really good. But he uses Kozmo Town to add back the Tin Can and then reveals it and shuffles it back, which I don't honestly agree with there. I mean, he could have really pressured me with the Tin Can by continually summoning it and, continually getting its effect. That's kind of how the Kozmo deck really kind of plays and gets rewarded at this current point in time. But anyway, so he attacks me with Dark Eclipser, sets 1 and passes. I top deck a Reasoning and activate it, and he calls 1, and I mill my way into a Garnet after milling the Soul Charge. Rip in peace. So Garnet Turbo is the name of the game currently in this particular game, and in this particular match, actually. But I use my normal summon on blue layer and see if it can go through, but it doesn't. He strikes me again, and I'm just like, oh my god. At this point, I'm pretty much completely resigned to losing this game, but I just didn't want to scoop, because 1, I wanted the video to kind of have more substance, and 2, I'm of the mindset that like I should never really scoop unless time is involved, and of course in online play that's not really a factor, but because it can just reveal more things about what my opponent is playing, and also my opponent could just mess up. So essentially that's what ultimately ends up kind of happening. He got really greedy in that he could have just easily put me on a clock with Dark Eclipser and kept attacking me over and over with it, and he had me on a 2-turn clock. But he Dark Hold and then tried to use his Dark Eclipser effect, and at that point I was able to Solemn Strike it, and thus now there's no longer a threat on the board. And he adds it back off Kozmo Town and shuffles it back to draw a new card. And so basically, I'm talking in chat, I was like, oh, if I get a combo card for my next draw, this is really good for me, I could possibly just be back in this game. When beforehand, I was literally just on the verge of just scooping, because, I mean, like, there was basically everything had been stopped, and I'm very low on resource in terms of combo cards I could have. But I get the best top deck I probably could have had in the deck, based off Soul Charge being gone and stuff like that, and that was the Fairy one, and I reveal just one, I reveal a green and 2 reds by accident, so I put the red back and reveal a blue, and, have him just pick at random with the die roll. I start laying out my parameters myself, but then I delete it because I realize he's going to lay them out, because, I mean, he let me do the same thing for his cards, so, like, it's only courteous. So, he put blue as 1-2 and red as 3-4, so green would be 5-6, and he rolled a 4, so red gets summoned, and then red gets to add back a card. But green also gets the trigger, and I have the blue layer in hand, so I ditch blue layer to draw another card, ends up being another red layer. The blue layer in my graveyard, which I activated as, Chain Link 2, gets to shuffle cards back, and then the red layer adds back the green layer, because I've got red layer in my hand, so I can then next turn summon green layer, special red layer, and then red layer can add blue layer back from grave as well, and then be continual plays, and that'll also be a rank 5. And I've got the warning backing myself up, so I feel like I'm in an actual favorable position for the first time ever in this game. But my opponent reveals Straw Man off the top, shovels it back to draw a new card, and apparently not very happy with what he draws because he plays another Kozmo Town on top of the one he already had, and then uses its shuffle back effect one more time, just trying to dig for something, which is strange because I didn't actually pay attention to the sequence of cards that came out of his hand during the game, but he ends up MSTing my warning, which is basically what's making me feel safe. Like, I feel really safe, but he ends up having MST E-Telly, and I can't remember what the sequence of play was, where the E-Telly came from, whether or not it was the card he drew off the second Kozmo Town resolving, or whether or not he already had the E-Telly and is drew the MST for the warning. Regardless, I mean, either one was very critical. He needed the MST. He either needed the E-Telly to make the play, or he needed the MST to clear the warning to make the E-Telly be the play. So I'm actually curious. Yes, the card that he did draw was MST, so he already had the E-Telly. So he definitely just was digging for something to keep the back row, cleared out, I guess, because I guess he just assumed that it was a trap since he has already seen a strike. And I mean, kind of rightfully so. It does make sense for him to do so, basically. But now I just have red layer and I have green and red in hand, and I'm feeling a lot less secure, although my opponent is really low. And I'm just kind of hoping that things will happen in a favorable position for the rest of the game, because I'm just like, at this point I'd already resigned myself to losing. If I'm able to win this one, then that would be amazing, because that would honestly just feel like a win that I stole, basically. I would have felt like I stole the win. And so at this point, the absolute last card I want to give him is Dark Destroyer. And so I'm trying to lay out in my mind like what I think I might be able to roll. And so I put 1-2 Destroyer, 3-4 Runner, and of course I roll 1-2. The only card I don't want to deal with is the Dark Destroyer. So I end up giving it to him because I'm just a really generous person. And I'm also still sick. Sucks to suck, right? But anyway, he summons the Dark Destroyer because the Tin Can would get banished otherwise, obviously, and he decides to use no effect because red layer can float. So I end up top decking again and another amazing card in the form of E-Telly. So I have green layer that can basically summon every card out of my hand, and so just going from there. And I basically just know at this point that my game plan is going to be to try and just kill him over that Dark Destroyer, but I just don't know how I'm planning on doing that yet. So I summon green layer after searching the fairy off the blue layer that I got off E-Telly, and the green special summons the fairy out of my hand. And so at this point I know that I just want to make a rank 4, and at this point I remember there's Utopia the Lightning in this extra deck, and I'm like, ooh, the spice. So I trigger the fairy effect and I reveal red layer, the fairy, and green layer. So at this point it literally does not matter what he picks as long as it's not red layer. But even red layer would have been pretty good there, because the green layer would have triggered the red layer out of my hand, and that red layer out of my hand would have also special summoned the green from grave. So basically, out of all 3 cards I picked, no matter which one he picked, I was able to make a rank 4 out of it, because the red layer out of my hand would have gotten triggered if green layer wasn't picked, and if green layer was picked, then it's obviously going to get summoned. And so there is that. So I just make Utopia the Lightning and hit him for game here, and then we go into siding. The longest part of this video was definitely the game 1, because like I said, I had no actual implications of thinking that I was going to win it. And at this point, I haven't played this deck enough in match form to actually know really efficiently how to side deck with it, and I'm sitting here trying to figure this out, especially trying to side against Kozmo, because I have no idea what I'm really actually trying to do in terms of siding for that specific matchup. It's not something that I'm actually aware of what I'm going to be doing. I don't know if I'm going to be going first, if I'm going to be going second. So I just assume I'm going to be going second, and so I side out the upstarts, and I side out all the traps for just back row removal and dark holes, and then I remember that there's a Necro Valley in the side deck, so I then go to swap out Chicken Game for it, and I'm like, no, the Chicken Game is actually just a card I should probably keep in just to turn the terraformings into draws. Thus, if I have double terraforming, I can go terraforming into Chicken Game and Necro Valley, and potentially lock him out from there. So my original read was correct on that. I just assumed he was going to go first again, as the Kozmo deck usually does, so it wasn't really that in-depth of a thought process. But he has the really cool combo, which is Dark Destroyer plus a Pilot. And what it is you summon the Pilot, you banish for Dark Destroyer, use Dark Destroyer to target itself, destroy itself, banish itself for its own effect, get Straw Man out of the deck, use Straw Man, pay 500, get the Dark Destroyer back. It gets negated, but at the end phase it destroys itself, and thus you can get Tin Can out of the deck, and then get your pay 500 to search, and you end with 2 Pilots instead of 1. Whereas if you had just kept your hand with Dark Destroyer in your hand and Tin Can on the board, you would have gotten a search, yes, but you would have only had 1 Pilot and you would have had 2 ships in hand. Whereas in this situation, you end up with 1 ship in hand and 2 Pilots, as well as it makes your Call of the Haunted stronger, it makes all these things stronger. But anyway, he reveals Forerunner, Dark Destroyer, and Dark Eclipser, and I roll a die and randomly give him Dark Eclipser based off what I gave him. And my hand is, again, really good. Reasoning, E-Tele, Double Terraforming, Blue Layer, Brilliant Fusion. I am just absolutely just like dying inside, because I'm like, if this goes through, it's amazing. But I activate the Brilliant Fusion, I get Magic Deflected, and so I have to read this card to just verify with myself what it actually negates. And so it basically negates everything that you activate except for normal spells. So basically the only cards in my hand that are live is basically now the Reasoning, because the Terraformings, yes, are live, but the field spells themselves are not, thus meaning Terraforming is actually a blank. So I activate Reasoning, and he calls 1, and I actually do mill into the Fairy, so I'm just like, ooh, just another just not favorable interaction for me there. And so I Terraforming, and I'm just thinking about what I want to get, and I basically just decide on Chicken Game, because it is the next card in my deck if I get to next turn. And then I get to summon the Blue Layer, and I can use its effect to, search and just thin my deck for another card. And basically I just do not want to leave that Tin Can on the field for another end phase, because he can trigger it to search during my end phase as well. That's definitely not something that I want to happen, not in a million years. So I summon the Blue Layer, use its effect to search Red Layer, because Red Layer can special summon itself. I've got E-Tele, so that's another Blue Layer, and I attack into his Tin Can, forcing him to banish for Eclipser. Now, here is the point where I 100% lost the game. I set the E-Tele because I was going to use E-Tele on his turn to summon a Blue Layer and get another search, and also use it as a chump, wall to block. But he ends up having an MST down, and he end-phase MSTs the E-Tele. So I could have potentially used that as a blocker, but I ultimately can't do that now, and I basically have to scoop because he summons a Farm Girl, he has Eclipser, he has Straw Man that he just used to bring my Dark Destroyer. Like, all of these things just are not favorable for me at all. The Farm Girl itself is like 5k damage, or 45 by getting another Dark Destroyer. Like, that by itself is just insane. So we go in deciding. I know I'm going first for the next game, so I take out the Dark Holes, and I take out the MSTs, and I put back in the Solemns, because I want to keep in the Necro Valley, and I want to keep in the Twin Twisters, just in case like things get a little insane, things can happen. But I basically just didn't need a lot of the mass removal because I know I'm going first. And so I choose to go first. I'm like, this deck doesn't have that high a chance of bricking. It has like 13-14% chance of actually bricking. Your hands are usually just playable. But guess who found the 13-14%? This guy. My hand is terrible. It's absolutely horrendous. Garnet Turbo. At least there's 2 Garnets in the deck, so if I drew Brilliant Fusion, it would be live. But basically, I want to hold the green layer in case I draw a blue layer, so that I can summon green and special blue and get value there in terms of what I'd be able to exceed into. So I summon the Garnet, set my strike and pass, and I'm like, hopefully this strike can get me into my next turn. And if it protects the Garnet, then I can actually probably do something in the form of green layer, make it an Xyz, bait whatever back row he might have, and then instant fusion into another rank 4. Like, these are actual thought processes that are going through my head. But ultimately, the match it's really downhill from here. Like, basically, I should have basically in my head I've already lost, because I should have lost game 1. There's absolutely no reason I should have actually won that game outside of my opponent misplaying, getting, greedy, wanting to end the game sooner when he already had me on a clock. So the fact that I'm even in game 3 at this point is just kind of just extra, but still, I'm trying to win still because I have the chance to. But MST, being the defining force of this match, just continues to show its ugly head, and he MSTs my Solemn Strike. I would have been kind of okay with it if it had been a Twin Twister for 1, because at least then it would have been like, oh, I'm taking away resource from him, it's not being favorable, but no, it's just MST. And so absolutely, right here, 100% the last card I want to give this man is Dark Destroyer. I would love to give him that Farm Girl, but I roll the die, and guess what 5 and 6 was? It was the Dark Destroyer, and I'm just crying. I'm just crying on the inside. I am such a generous man. Fight me with all your strength, duelist. Oh, basically. So, I top deck a Reasoning, and I'm like, ooh, this could be really good. He calls 1, and I mill cards, try to get into the things that I want to do. But, guess what shows its ugly head? Another Garnet. Garnet Turbo. That is what my deck is, basically. Exactly the card I wanted. My most fearsome cart. The Garnet. So, at least I can make a rank 4 here. I'm just like, okay. This could potentially be something that's worthwhile. So, I basically am just trying to figure out how I can bait that Dark Destroyer and like the most efficient method, and then go into Utopia the Lightning to beat over it, and hopefully maybe just kind of ride my way through the game that way? Question mark. So I make Castel, and I mean it doesn't really matter when he summoned Dark Destroyer, because he could have easily just chained the tag out into Dark Destroyer on the Castel effect. But so he summons Dark Destroyer, pops the Castel, and I instant fusion into Norden and use Norden to bring back one of those powerful Garnets. 3rd time it's being summoned this game. Oh yes, must be the best card in the deck, right? Right, ladies and gentlemen? Best card confirmed, 2016. Fucking vanilla. But, regardless, I summon Utopia, and when I summon it, he reveals a Kozmo Joe, and I'm just like, that is 100% the last card I wanted to see. I would have rather have seen a Solemn Strike, because, at that point, he's paying life, stuff like that, but he gets Strawman out of his deck. And I summoned the Green Lair because I was going to be like, ooh, I'm going to attack over this pilot. Cool. But then I realized it's a Strawman, and that thing has 1800 defense, and Green Lair is only 16. So, that's not a plan anymore. So I immediately just put the Green Lair back in my hand after I just look at the Strawman. Like, it's literally like a split second. I was like, ow. But he gets to start his turn by paying 500, summon the Dark Destroyer, and then he gets to banish the Strawman and summon Dark Eclipser. And here I just think that it's over. But then he activates Dark Hole, and he banishes both, and he gets to search for a Sword Trooper, and then summon a Forerunner, which I thought he was going to summon Farm Girl, but then again, he'd added Sword Trooper. I'm like, oh yeah, he has that Farm Girl in the grave from the first turn. Broken! Like, wow. I'm actually more surprised that he left Dark Hole in against the Magnus deck. Like, if this deck can make a field, it's usually able to make Magnus. So I'm kind of curious that he actually left those in. But anyway, Sword Troopers, gets Farm Girl back, attacks me with Farm Girl, gets to search for Dark Destroyer, attacks me with Sword Trooper, tags the Sword Trooper out into Dark Destroyer, and then hits me directly for Forerunner for game. And at this point, you see in the chat that I'm mentioning to him that, I didn't want to affect his play, but I'm telling him now that, like, since the game is essentially over, that I was filming, so he could possibly see it on the channel later. And he just does a little fun shiz. Because, I mean, basically, we've just been having some banter back and forth for the entire match. I'm really friendly with people, honestly. A lot more friendly than I usually am on DEVpro, because there is actually, a chat window. And there's not time. Like, time is a huge factor. But yeah, so, summons Dark Destroyer and attacks. And I'm just like, you sure you don't want to get more greedy? Pop your Forerunner, get another pilot, hit me with that one too? Huh? You sure you don't want to? You still have a Farm Girl effect that you can tag out with too. Ooh, yeah, you want to? But essentially, he's just like, nah, man, I'm just going to kill you. And it's like, yeah, rightfully so. So that ends up being the entire match. So anyway, guys, as usual, let me know what you guys think about the game in the comments down below. What do you think about the Super Quantum deck? What do you think about bricking? What do you think about the new direction the Kozmo deck has gone in terms of it, applying Sword Trooper and stuff like that into it? As always, like, comment, subscribe, do all the nonsense you usually do. Check out the links in the description, my Facebook pages, my Twitch channel, my Twitch Alerts donation link if you want to support me directly. Definitely all options, definitely all things you might want to check out, look at, do whatever you want with them. They are there for you to use and look into. But other than that, that is going to be all for this video. As always, guys, take care.